video. So just felt like I wanted to put together a quick video, a little watch out. This is something that I've obviously fallen victim to in the past. So maybe if this helps one person, great. If not, so be it. But yeah, I wanted to just kind of talk about some data. You know, it seems like every other day there's a new ETF, active ETFs, whatever, launched across the globe, right? Whether they're thematic ETFs or anything like that. And so there's all of these new ETFs coming in. Every single day you hear about one, whether it's on X or Instagram or anything like that. And so one thing that I've just been kind of made aware of more and more is the fact that there is sort of a silent killer among ETFs, whether they are all tracking the same thing. Something to just have a watch out for is the expense ratio. So one thing, this is just a little sort of graph that I created comparing two S&P 500 funds, right? Obviously, the FXAIX, I hold this in my portfolio. It's a mutual fund. Obviously, there's some slight variations between the ETF and a mutual fund. However, for someone like myself and maybe plenty of people out there, some of the major keys are you don't need this money anytime soon. You're not trying to be necessarily an active trader of the S&P 500. You're just buying on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and eventually planning to use this money towards your retirement fund and all of that. But it's going to be 20, 30 plus years, 40 years maybe before you ever touch that money. And so one thing just to be aware of is expense ratios can drastically change how much money you end up making in the long run. Obviously, this is not a dramatic difference between the two, 0.09 versus 0.015. However, you look at 20 years down the line, all these expenses, they compound over time. So right there, FXAIX, the advantage of that with the lower expense ratio, tracking the exact same fund, is just under $10,000. So when you're getting virtually the same results, I personally would love to have an extra $10,000 for something. So this is something that I'm taking more care at looking at when I'm looking at ETFs. It's obviously easier to invest in ETFs compared to single stocks and have sort of a broader range and diversity with what you're investing in. But it's just something to be aware of. For me, you know, I was kind of in between a few options here. I had FBGRX here on the left, recently sold out of it. And I have been looking at QQQ, obviously, and SCHG. Obviously, they're all slightly different. You know, QQQ tracking the NASDAQ, SCHG, they're all a little different. However, I was really looking at SCHG versus FBGRX and found that they were relatively similar when you look at their top 10 holdings. Obviously, the weights are slightly different. However, I thought that they were relatively similar, and I wasn't exactly sure where to go. So then I look at, you know, their previous 5 years. Obviously, QQQ has performed the best, slightly different index that it's tracking. However, when I look at FBGRX, which is fairly similar to SCHG, there is a pretty dramatic difference between the two. And so when you start to dive deeper into these positions, you see it right here, the expense ratios. So the FBGRX expense ratio was 0.61 versus SCHG is 0.040. And so when I look at positions like that, where I find that they're relatively similar, obviously the FBGRX is an actively managed mutual fund. So you're kind of, in theory, paying for that. But in reality, SCHG has performed better. They hold and their top 10 holdings are relatively similar. And you can see right there the expense ratio and how that is going to dramatically impact everything over a long time frame. For me, I have a time horizon of 20 plus years, 20, 30 years, more than likely. Could even go longer. And so this is going to compound over time. And so I did a similar graph to what I did previously, sort of starting to compare the three over a 20-year period. Hey, it's me. Sorry to butt in right now. If you made it this far, that's pretty amazing. Not many people do in my videos, so you're a real keeper. If you could like and subscribe to this, I would greatly appreciate it. I am updating my monthly dashboard every single month, showing different changes to my portfolios, things like that. So would love for you to tag along and leave some comments. Let me know how you think my portfolio is doing and all that. All right. See you. And you can just see with $100,000 invested, if hypothetically they all grew roughly the same amount, you can see exactly what the difference is going to be in the expenses that you're going to be paying over a 20-year period. So FBGRX, if I just kept everything the same in FBGRX right now, instead of potentially converting to something that I felt like was similar in some ways, my total fees for 20 years is just under $44,000 versus $2,800. So that's something that I think can sometimes go a little unnoticed, and just wanted to bring it up quickly in a short little snippet video, comparing these side by side, specifically SCHG versus FBGRX. It just felt like a no-brainer to me. Over a 20-year period on a $100,000 investment, it's $92,000 in differences, if they track relatively similar over the next 10, 20 years. So just something to be aware of, especially with the increase in ETFs, these thematic ETFs, the covered call ETFs, all that stuff. Be aware of the expense ratios. Keep an eye on them. If you find that there's a few ETFs that you're in between that track relatively similar funds, make sure you're looking at the expense ratios. So that's it for this one. Hope you guys have a great week and talk to you guys soon. See you.